What's up, freaks? It's your boy Marty here to introduce this episode of Tales from the Crypt. I sat down with Brian Harrington, great Bitcoiner. Been following for quite some time. Was very happy to get him on the horn. He is doing some interesting things out in California. He got elected to his local government, and he's working to try to convince them that they should be integrating Bitcoin into their locality as much as possible. We had a very interesting, wide-ranging conversation. We get into the difference between changing things via your local government as opposed to the federal government, which is very fascinating. We may be able to do more at the local level and have more impact at the local level, which is something we love to talk about here on Tales from the Crypt than we could ever hope to achieve at the federal level. So I think you guys are really going to like this episode. I certainly did. This episode was brought to you by our good friends at the Cash App. You freaks already know all about them. All right, they're helping us stack sats. They're helping us send sats, receive sats, and sats is the standard now. If you want to sell sats, you can do that too. Not recommended on this podcast, but if you want to, the option is there. You can buy and sell. You can stack and unstack on the Cash App. On top of that, they're allowing you to invest in stocks. Listen, freaks. Hey, you with your headphones in, maybe in your car, maybe in your backyard, maybe drinking a beer. I don't know what you're doing, but I know you can hear me. Okay, I know that not all of you want to buy stocks, okay? But the option is there. If you want to stack stocks via the Cash App, via Cash App investing specifically, you can do that. You can stack slivers of stocks. You do not have to buy a whole stock. If it's way too expensive for you, if you want to buy a stock, if you don't want to, you don't have to. But if you want to and it's a little too expensive, you can buy as little as $1 via Cash App investing. Because it's connected directly to your bank account, there's no 4 to 5 day waiting periods. You can start investing today. Cash App may even be your bank account. They're offering account number and rounding numbers now, so you can get your checks directly deposited into the app, start stacking faster, take out that whole move money to the Cash App process. Just get it sent straight there from your paycheck. Cash App Investing is a subsidiary of Square, member SIPC. As always, remember to use the code STACKINGSATS if you haven't downloaded the app yet. If you download the app, use the code STACKINGSATS. That's one word, STACKINGSATS. You're going to get $10, and $10 is going to go to our good friends at Al's Lacrosse. Stacking Sats. Enjoy this episode.
You've had a dynamic where money's become freer than free.
If you talk about a Fed just gone nuts, all the central banks going nuts.
So it's all acting like safe haven.
I believe that in a world where central bankers are tripping over themselves to devalue their currency, Bitcoin wins. In the world of fiat currencies, Bitcoin is the victor.
I mean, that's part of the bull case for Bitcoin.
If you're not paying attention, you probably should be.
What is up, freaks? Welcome back to Tales from the Crypt. It's your boy Marty Bent here on a beautiful Wednesday evening for me. It's turning into evening. I'm very excited to have this conversation. We nailed it down today. I'm sorry. I am slow to respond to DMs sometimes. I'm sitting down with Bitcoiner, great Bitcoiner, Brian Harrington. Brian, welcome to the podcast.
Dude, it's like humbling, truly humbling to be here talking to you and the freaks. Like I'm excited to be alive, and I'm excited that we're all rising to the occasion. So I'm excited to just openly conspire with all of you and continue ushering in the revolution. Like, that's what I feel like we're doing. So I'm thankful to be here.
I'm thankful to have you here. And that's why I wanted to bring you on. You're very, very vocal about wanting to free the world and free people's minds and get them out from under the thumb of the state, particularly after all this lockdown stuff, where obviously it's a hot topic, very controversial to some, but I think in my mind at least, there's no doubt that the state is taking advantage of this crisis to inhibit civil liberties, and some people are just rolling over and taking it.
Dude, yeah, no, exactly. That, it is kind of controversial. I threw out that protest video on our Bitcoin just to, try to make some new friends, see what was going to happen. And everyone was mad at me for being outside on our Bitcoin. And I was like, I thought we were libertarians here. I don't understand what's happening. So I just want people I appreciate people's perspective on, both sides of this thing. But no, yeah, the shutdown has truly kind of shook me to my core, because like I've been involved in politics. I've always loved politics, and like there's thousands, that, not exaggerating, think across the United States, thousands of city council, county council, state representatives, federal representatives that are ignoring private property rights and saying that it's illegal to engage in commerce. That's weird. Like, so these people that I've been like working for and working with are have nothing to do with what I'm interested in doing. And that's been a weird realization over the last, 58 days.
Yeah, I mean, and especially as more data is coming in, we know who this virus attacks. We have better data around that, and who we should be protecting and who is less susceptible to getting a severe case of this virus. It doesn't make any sense to quarantine everybody, especially as tens of millions of people are becoming unemployed. I think I just saw a tweet where Chairman Powell came out and said 40% of people making $40,000 or lower are currently unemployed, which is insane.
Yeah, no, and so that's what sparked for me this whole stuff about taxes is that, like, on a real practical level, like, what are we paying for? Like, what am I paying for? You're taking away rights, you're taking away freedoms. I thought that's what I was paying for. Like, I thought that's what the social contract said, was that you as elected people protect life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and me as the citizen, like, pay taxes. Isn't that what the arrangement is? Like, and so you guys aren't upholding your end of the bargain. So, like, what am I supposed to do to uphold my bargain?
Yeah, no, that's why we're sitting here. It's like tax protest. Definitely a very, very touchy, controversial subject. Should we not pay our taxes? I mean, this is something I've been thinking about more, and it's definitely a taboo subject to even bring up. Like, oh, you're not going to pay your taxes? The IRS is going to come knocking on your door. You're going to get Wesley sniped. But fuck it. Like, let's have the conversation. They are not upholding their end of the bargain. We're finding out that some of our tax dollars may have even gone to fund the research around this virus specifically. Like, so we're paying to have them research something that is killing us. What does it even make sense anymore? Are we getting any return on our investment at this point? And is it an investment or a return on our labor?
Right. No, and I know it's a touchy subject, and I know it's like, look, it's easy to just be a loudmouth libertarian on Twitter. Like, and I'm guilty of that. I'm just as guilty of that as, a lot of us are. But that's why I started to really think about, okay, what would this actually look like? And that's where kind of this renewed sense of urgency to me of like the Bitcoin circular economy and like, what do these citadels actually look like? What, there already are arrangements like this in the United States, because like, look, the Amish already live under their own set of rules. The Native Americans already live under their own set of rules. And so I don't know, like, there has to be legal ways, or like I sent you this, like, too, like, there was just this ruling at the Supreme Court called the Janus decision that allows public employees to opt out of their unions now. So that's been like a long fight over like a long amount of times of people like standing up for their rights and saying like, no, I shouldn't have to join this like collective bargaining thing if I don't want to, even though you're, mandating that I do it. And I kind of want to do the same thing, dude, but with like Social Security. Like, Social Security is not going to pay us back. It's not. Like, we all know that. We all know the math on that. But now, like, we have this like radical open source software tool to create our own economy and literally annex ourselves in place while still being, patriots of whatever country we live in. And so that's like, I'm trying to drive this line of like, I'm not just trying to spout off this like, oh, I'm angry, you guys aren't treating me fair or whatever. As much as I, feel like that and want to rant like that, I'm literally trying to make like an actual case for, what does this middle of the road, change look like to protest? Wow, we're building around the regulations.
Yeah, and I think Alex Gladstein made a good point yesterday. We were on a panel, or a podcast panel, if you will, at the Value of Bitcoin conference, the virtual conference, and he made a good point about peaceful protest having much greater chances of succeeding as opposed to violent protests. And Bitcoin is the most peaceful protest because you don't even have to leave your fucking house.
Yeah. Yeah. No, just every dollar that you swap into Bitcoin is a protest. And every dollar that we keep inside Bitcoin, inside the circular economy, is a protest. And so that's like, and I guess that's what's cool, right? Is that this, I mean, the silver lining of this thing is that it has brought the sense of urgency to me to not just be one of these guys that, you know, like there is this whole debate of just, you know, hodling versus spending and just like, what is this going to look like? And I do think some of us are in trouble of kind of just, you know, keeping the sats on hardware wallets and just hoping for the moon. And that is positive. It's still a net benefit. But like, I'm excited for some of us that have been doing that for a while to start taking the next step. Like I just bought an Android. Like, dude, I'm an iPhone Cash Apper, dude. I'm an iPhone Cash Apper Bitcoiner. Like, but I'm trying to learn and get better. Like, I bought an Android. You know, I'm hanging out with like the samurai guys now in Telegram and trying to learn and trying to understand what the whole deal is, because I never had, there was no point in me buying Bitcoin for cash because I didn't know how to store it, because it was confusing. But now with, you know, Samurai and Whirlpool and all this stuff on the phone, and they give you control over the UTXOs, like, that's now more simple for me to actually, you know, have digital cash and have a dedicated phone that would allow me to participate in a circular economy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I bought an Android, wiped it, downloaded Graphene too, and I'm running Dojo and Whirlpool, and I'm very happy. And yeah, and I mean, it's like layers to it, right? Like you can ease into it. Like, and I do sort of hate the shaming of people who use the KYC services. I do agree that KYC is evil and that it's not ideal that these exchanges know the at least the first hop from the exchange when you're interacting with them. That is, I would know the first hop from a merchant if I were to buy things with Bitcoin as well, unless they're going straight into a coin join, which is possible, especially with a pay join. But no, there's levels to it, and there is sort of stepping stones for different types of users. There's certainly the people who will go straight to BISC and know how to set that up and run that and find a counterparty to a trade. But there's others who's just honestly easier, that they already have the Cash App and they could just go to the tab and stack some sats that way. Disclaimer, Cash App's sponsor the pod. Everybody knows that already. Yeah, no, it is. And that's why I like the work you've been doing recently and why I wanted to reach out. Obviously, we want to talk about the tax stuff and tax protesting, but obviously you've been pushing hard on Instagram and YouTube, and you know, the crazy big followings there, but you're reaching out to your friends and family and just educating like one at a time with these small 1 to 2 minute videos about how to get access and then use Bitcoin. So why have you been doing that?
So because I've always been into personal finance. Like my parents, like, I'm thankful that my parents taught me how to budget. Like, I used the like envelope system like as a kid, and you know, you put 80% in spending, 10%, you know, gave it to the church, and 10% to savings. So my parents taught me how to do that. So I've always grown up just watching, you know, Dave Ramsey and like all these budgeting like videos. And there's like, honestly, the whole like personal finance community on Twitter and Instagram and, you know, YouTube is behind. They're behind. And so it really was one of those things where it's like, okay, if they're not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so I started talking about just the 3 sides of my balance sheet and how I use Bitcoin, you know, to protect my savings from inflation, because I see that as a really like practical application to it. That's why.
Yeah, and I actually was piss poor at personal finance until I found Bitcoin, and even like longer into my Bitcoin journey, it got even better at it. Like right now, I think I'm hitting my stride in terms of personal finance and using Bitcoin as a part of that sort of suite. No, and like I said, like before we hit record, I had a long stretch in my 20s where I was unemployed, so I felt like I was a couple steps behind even a few years ago, and trying to catch up. And it does seem daunting at times, or it did at least. Like, holy shit, how am I ever going to save for the future? How am I going to stack enough sats? but it is weighing the opportunity cost and literally trying to spend less and save more.
Yeah. Well, totally, dude. And so that was the thing I was going to say about the whole, KYC exchange versus non-KYC exchange too, is that so we'll take it all the way to the other extreme. Dude, I love BlockFi. Like I like that. I think that's cool. I don't think that's weird to put some of your Bitcoin there. Like, I think there's three sides of the balance sheet, like have your Fed coin or Fed dollars to pay your rent and taxes, have your Bitcoin that you deposit with either, a company like Unchained or a company like BlockFi to get fiat liquidity for the loans when price skyrockets, and then have the third bucket, which is non-KYC, true FU money Bitcoin on your dedicated Android that operates in a circular economy. Like, I'm going to take advantage of this whole thing, and I'm going to ride this wave and ride this transition and literally change the financial outlook, for my family for generations. Like, that's really my plan. And so I think it's just like any kind of budgeting. I don't think it's weird to look at your Bitcoin in terms of, some that you leverage for fiat liquidity and some that you keep in a circular economy to, do avoid taxes. And the whole using cash to avoid taxes, that's not that controversial. Like, I'm in California right now. I could walk outside and buy tacos for cash right now, and those people don't pay taxes on that. That. We all do this. We've all bought stuff in cash, and the businesses are not reporting it. So that's not new, in the US.
No, not at all. And in terms the BlockFi Unchained, as long as you're informed about the risk and you're willing to take it, hey, do whatever you want with your sats. They're your sats.
Yeah.
At the end of the day. So let's take a step back here. How'd you get into Bitcoin in general? Obviously you've been engaged in politics your whole life. You were the president of your high school your senior year. Is that what sort of drove you towards Bitcoin, or?
So yeah, I've always been involved in politics, but no, the Fed and political side of Bitcoin wasn't what drew me to it. What drew me to it was my dad and I were always just make money online guys. I just grew up, going to conferences and just trying out different stuff on the internet with him. So, just I think it was I made my first purchase on Coinbase January 2015, and I remember it was just it was one of the sign up bonuses, and it was just drop in my $50, watch it double, and I pulled out my initial investment because I just saw it as a way. I would sign up for free checking accounts just to flip the first $100 too. So it was just trying out another app and trying to make money on the internet. That's how it started for me.
And when was this, if you don't mind me asking?
Yeah, January 2015. Dude, and I found out this year. This was crazy. Dude, my dad bought on Gox. And I never even had told me about it. And so, cause my dad has fallen in and out of Bitcoin. So, cause, and now he cautions me, dude, it might not work out, be careful, whatever. And I'm I agree, but there's but that's where then the whole political side comes in for me now. And it's but I really don't see any other option. I don't want to live in a world where we get ripped off. I'm sorry. I don't that doesn't work for me anymore. I took the red pill. I don't want to get ripped off anymore. I can't unsee it. So that's why I'm passionate about it.
So when did you see it? How long did it take you?
This is interesting. To your point of how just being unemployed, dude, I would work on these political campaigns and I would have months off at a time in between these political campaigns. So I would have, cause it's very seasonal work. So I would have, work for 4 or 5 months, and then I'd be off for 4 or 5 months. And so Sharon, my wife, is at work, and I'm just at home watching YouTube and listening to podcasts. Cause number one, that's the only school that works nowadays, is Twitter and YouTube to learn how to do something. So I just did, I watched YouTube and read Twitter and just heard all of you talking about this.
It is the best. I mean, I've said this many times on this podcast. YouTube is the best teacher these days, even though it's getting pretty Orwellian too. They are just taking. Yeah. They're curbing free speech, but go full beauty on here. They're a private company. They can do whatever they want with their platform.
Yeah, it just, dude, the whole attention is currency. So just grab the attention wherever you can right now. Like leverage Twitter, leverage YouTube, leverage Facebook, leverage whatever you can do. Just grab the attention. Like your name, like as activists, like I like doing marketing consulting. I like just coaching activists on just your name is the product. So just all press is good press. Your name is the product. Don't be afraid to just publish stuff on the internet, video, written, everything.
Now, again, that's what we were talking about. Like, you asked me if I learned anything at Barstool, and I really learned before I got to Barstool. Like, Dave always drove that home to Stoolies, and people who wanted to write for Barstool was like, all right, like, just produce content every day. Like, the best way to get a job at Barstool is to create your own blog and make content every day, prove that you can actually show up and produce good content. And it is the hardest part, is showing up every day and being consistent. A lot of people want to just burst onto the scene, and they think their ideas are great, and they may be great, but if you can't follow that up with consistent production, it's not going to take you anywhere. Totally.
And so like I changed this a little bit about my mindset that made it easier for me to blog and, make videos too, was that this is weird. I'm sure it works both ways for different kinds of people, but as soon as I stopped trying to hold myself to some sort of schedule or promise the audience some sort of schedule, it made it way easier for me. And so, and granted, like I don't have any sponsorships or like whatever, or I don't have no one's depending on me to like show up. But as soon as I just started seeing like my work on the internet and my website as a portfolio that I just wanted to be proud of and wanted to add to it. And then when a question would come up, like now when I get like we all have gotten the message, from the friend that comes out of the woodwork that says, hey man, like, so this Bitcoin thing, like, dude, I literally now just send them my Bitcoin starter kit playlist from YouTube. Like, and I just say, hey dude, like really appreciate you asking, man. Like I made this videos, like playlist, like would really appreciate you give me feedback. And I almost like put it back on them to understand, where do you want to start the conversation? Because like, and that has like just facilitated so many better conversations.
Yeah. I mean, that's how the newsletter started. It was just literally all those friends coming to me being like, what about Bitcoin? It got overwhelming. I was like, all right, sign up for the newsletter. You'll learn a little bit every day.
Yeah.
And it snowballs into this weird thing where I wind up talking to people I meet on Twitter. And it's fun. It's rewarding, but it's not easy to write every day, produce content every week.
No, it's not. And Twitter makes you get addicted to writing like short sentences and getting the emotional feedback directly from it. And so it's hard to go offline, and then you spend, an hour or whatever your process is to write a longer blog post, and, you don't get as many eyeballs on it. And so that's that can be depressing. And it can be like, so then you just sit in the constant, Twitter game. And I was thinking about this of like the Nakamoto Institute guys. Like I never really like scrolled that site very much. Like it wasn't super, influential to me, but the fact that it's there and the fact that like people can now link back to it today and like the stuff is still relevant is amazing. And so even though those guys, there was no emotional payoff in the moment of writing that, still the random 4 hours that they took to write that on that day has paid huge dividends. And so start to think about my writing and videos has gotten easier for me as I start to think about it as like, I want the record like of me saying this on the internet for myself personally, regardless of how many people like it today.
No, I mean, Nakamoto Institute for me personally was a huge influence and really helped me grasp Bitcoin. But Pierre, Michael, and Daniel, even though Daniel's a bit wayward these days, wrote some pretty evergreen content that you can point to today from 2013, 2014 and on. It's like stands the test of time.
Yeah. Dude, and Pierre was so nice with his like open DMs, like so early, like also. And that's the thing that I'm trying to replicate even now is like, you can message me and ask me. And like, because people answered questions for me. And I think we forget how much we know. And we do get addicted to listening to, the next podcast or the next YouTube video. And it's like, no, dude, like turn it off for a minute and go share the information. Because, or at least have open communication if someone wants to know.
Yeah. DMs are open, freaks, if you have any questions. I know I don't get to all of them. I get to as many as possible. It is rewarding too. And sometimes people, and I was like Pierre, a great example. Like I was shocked when he answered my DMs, like to come on the podcast. He was the first guest on the podcast. I think we had met at BitDevs a couple times, but it was just like, oh my God, this dude who I'm learning so much from responded to me.
Yeah.
And then, oh my God, he's retweeting me. He retweeted the newsletter. It's like, holy shit. And that's it's great. That's like the beauty of Bitcoin. Like and Bitcoiners specifically is that they believe in the power of Bitcoin so much, and they want to help as many people understand that as possible. And that's the tip I'm on now as well, is like, I truly believe, like you said, this is an imperative technology moving forward. Like we need it if we're going to have any sense of freedom in the digital age. And if that means getting in DMs and helping walk people through resources and answering questions, like it's got to be done.
Yeah. Dude, okay, because I said this before we started recording too, like getting in the trenches of the comments and the DMs is the exact opposite of what the elite class does. It's the exact opposite of the way that we're treated by politicians. Like, and that's what's revolutionary about this too. Like I said, I'm the whole, like, is Bitcoin a community thing? Like, no, Bitcoin is open source software and it can be used in multiple different ways for multiple different people. And it'll be different things to different people. It's inanimate open source software. Absolutely. But freedom fighters and those on the side of freedom, they are a community. And that's my community. And like, when I talk to you and when I like listen to Tales from the Crypt, that's who I feel like I'm hanging out with. Like, I feel like the way that I imagine the founding fathers felt, like inside those taverns, talking about under their breath, holy shit, dude, are you really serious? You're not going to pay taxes? Dude, the T tax, are you really saying that that's messed up? Yeah, dude, I am. Like, I'm openly saying that. I'm inviting you to come have a beer with me and continue talking about it. So that's what the DMs mean to me. And that's what getting in the trenches, in the comments, and talking to people means to me. And because it super makes me mad that the leaders of this country and the leaders of our counties and the leaders of our cities don't treat us like that.
No. And like you said, like, they're too polished, right? They're just taking the talking points and from the higher up on the ladder and just regurgitating them, and they're not authentic at all. And that's what I think drives me to the space in Bitcoiners and Bitcoin Twitter, is because the authenticity, not for everybody. Obviously, there's some scammers and dirtbags and people who are talking out their ass, but generally, if you're able to filter through all that, there is a lot of authenticity out there.
Yeah.
And we were talking, like, sorry for all the typos and the bent that sneak in there every once in a while. It's just pure off the cuff, off the dome, hit send as quick as possible because I need to get on to the next thing.
Yeah.
And like as soon as I stopped holding myself to like a 9 a.m. deadline, I was staying up to like 4 a.m. writing them. And I was like, you know what, this isn't possible for me, at least. And I don't want to force anything because of a deadline. So now it's like, it just gets out there whenever. I try to get out there before noon or 1 p.m., hopefully on the East Coast, but I don't hold myself to a strict like 9 a.m. schedule anymore.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. Like, we're doing it live right now. We're doing it live right now. It's open source. Like, the marketing department is open source, the same way the code gets written, open source. That's what's cool to me about it.
Do you think it's getting better over time?
Yeah.
You think the message is getting stronger?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think because like I told you, I did a presentation earlier today to a government affairs company, talking to them about Bitcoin mining and just preaching the message. Look, Bitcoin mining does not waste energy. It uses wasted energy, and just giving them the pitch and just saying, this is now changing economics of what energy producers are allowed to do, because now they can do whatever they're normally doing, or they can produce this commodity, and it's interruptible and you can switch back and forth. Like, just spreading that message. And the fact that I like gave this presentation to a sophisticated audience and they didn't even question Bitcoin, dude. They just immediately started talking about like the economics of like how a deal would actually happen. I think,
really?
Yeah. It's just, so it is happening. It's happening like a little bit at a time. That's what's cool.
Yeah. That feels like, and you have people like Paul Tudor Jones coming out saying he's getting in it, and is it just the time, like the amount of time Bitcoin's been around? You think it's established itself?
I think I think saying 10 years is really helpful. I said, saying 11 years and saying that, it's been around is really helpful. And I think just meeting people where they're at. Like I love to talk about just the big picture and like, oh, it's eating the world. Oh, we're ending the Fed, like all this stuff, but meeting where they're at and realizing like, hey, okay, regardless of all that stuff of what I think about it, if you have, surplus energy behind the meter, I can sell it now in a way, I can monetize it now in a way that the current regulations don't like you to do it. And I'll hold all the currency risk. We can find investors now, like I'll hold all the currency risk, and just letting them know that like there's other people out in the world that are like making this bet. And so if you want the fiat end of the agreement, that's fine. But that's still one step towards them making that next pivot. They're still now financially incentivized to like be a part of it.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think it's taken this long for the energy sector to sort of come around to this, or begin to come around to it. Not everybody has. It's crazy to think of how many efficiencies this network creates. Now we're finding out secondary and tertiary effects, like beyond the protocol itself, and the people who interact with it. Like it's helping out industries that have massive problems that need to be solved, and it's becoming more obvious that Bitcoin can solve these problems. It's really beautiful at the end of the day, and it's almost too good to be true for some people. Like, it's like, Bitcoin fixes everything. It's like, well, when you actually get down to the details, no, maybe probably doesn't fix everything, but it fixes a lot of things. Like fix the money, fix the world. I think that's a great thing to meme into the world.
Yeah, dude. Fix the money, fix the world. Yeah, I started repeating that when you started saying it too. Like, and I guess I shouldn't be so totally over optimistic, because you're right. Like this is funny. Like, dude, Cernovich. Like I replied, he like finally wrote me back on Twitter yesterday and was like, stop replying to everything I post with something about Bitcoin. And like, and I just thought that was funny. Like I screenshotted that and I was like, dude, but it's all connected. Like it's all connected, and cause I get in that zone. I'm like, dude, it is all connected. Or I replied to you and about like Eric Weinstein just tweeting out just all this stuff about how, he has a podcast on YouTube with him and Peter Thiel talking about how the whole world's in stagnation and, nothing's working and like science is stagnant and like all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, well then have someone besides Vitalik on your podcast then. Have a Bitcoiner on there that's telling you about how fix the money, fix the world. Like as some of these guys, I don't understand, like, how are you going to tweet so much about stagnation and bureaucracy and all this stuff? And Bitcoin is a thing. It's a thing. Why aren't you thinking about it? That's weird to me.
Well, again, like I think most people think it's just too good to be true. They're like, oh, fix the money, fix the world. Like how? But it's if you really dig into the problems of the world, it's driven by inequality, which is driven by monetary policy mainly today. And it's hard for people to grasp that, or they want to believe it's red team versus blue team. It's the blue team fucked us over. The red team fucked us over.
Right.
It's like, no, they're both working together at the end of the day, assholes. Like,
they are.
They're a brown team. Is that what you get when you mix blue and red?
The swamp, dude. It's called the swamp for a reason. No, okay. On that, exactly. And this is what bothers me about the kind of like gold bugs and like libertarians a little bit. Like where they say, well, I don't know. There's some guy who was tweeting the other day and someone asked him, like, what do you think about Bitcoin? And or do you own any Bitcoin? He's like, no, it's too speculative. I don't consider it a currency yet. And I just wrote him back and I was like, why is that a reason not to own some then? I vote for people that are long shots all the time. I donated the $1 to Justin Amash and I donated the $1 to Andrew Yang because I want us to, break the two-party system. I throw flyers out all the time for you guys to break the system. You're telling me you can't go to Cash App and sign up for $10 a month? Call it a political donation then. Like, what are you doing? Why don't you own some? Like, this is a thing. It's been around for 11 years.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah. And that's why I just started saying, like, okay, it's a political donation then. Like, I don't care. I don't care what you think about it. It's a political donation. Swap some Fed dollars for some Bitcoin. like
It's political. It's a political donation that cuts out the politicians, which are the worst part of the whole process.
yes, no, absolutely. I made a video about that the other day. I just said how often do we donate to politicians that go to Sacramento, go to DC, and do the opposite of what we ask them to do all the time, and that money never comes back. You don't even get a tax write-off for that money. So, dude, and that's where it's like, oh, like Bitcoin's too complicated. Like, no, it's not too complicated. Go on Cash App and buy it.
It's interesting coming from you because you've been pretty close to the beast. You've participated in political campaigns. You're part of the government in Orange County, aren't you?
Yeah. So I've worked on campaigns here in Orange County for the past 6 years. I worked for the Trump campaign. I was the Southern California field director for him, like during the primary here. I've worked for different congressmen here, and that's it. Truly, dude, like this last year of being involved with like the OC Bitcoin network guys and like this last 58 days of being locked down have like finally kind of just unlocked my brain to like red team versus blue team does not work. It just does not work. And that has like just fueled my like circular interest in Bitcoin even farther. And that's why, dude, but I do think it's an audience I can still talk to. Like, I don't want to say look, if all Bitcoiners are conservatives, like it doesn't matter. That's totally fine. Like, but like, I got elected to the Orange County Republican Party Central Committee. And now I can say like when I, tweet to Warren Davidson or tweet to Tyler Lindholm in Wyoming, or like some of these guys that are elected and are, fighting the good fight from where they're seated in the way that they're supposed to. I'm trying to meet them where they're at also of like, look, like I am in this game too. Like I am elected and I appreciate what you're doing as much as I talk about, like we have to use Bitcoin to like defund the bureaucracy. Like I appreciate where you're seated trying to, change the system also. And so I was really fired up. I was really fired up that Nick Carter got an article published at The American Mind, which is the blog post for the Claremont Institute, which is a big, I don't know if it's a think tank or a political action committee, like here in California. Like they partner sometimes with the other political action committee that I worked for here. And so I do think like we do need to turn some of these more traditional free market guys onto, like Bitcoin does work. Bitcoin is going to work in the way that gold can't and gold didn't, because it's opt-in 24/7, 365, and just take them through the whole thing. Meet them where they're at. Bitcoin is a tool for freedom. Bitcoin is a political donation. I don't care if you think we can actually end the Fed or not end the Fed. Doesn't matter. Like, get on board. Like, get off zero. Get on board.
I think more people are opening up to it, man, especially with these lockdowns. You get their Trump bucks. I mean, the amount of texts. My parents told me last night. They came down to visit. We had dinner, and they told me they took their Trump bucks and bought Bitcoin on the Cash App with it. I was very proud.
Dude, my little brother, both my little brothers inside the last 60 days have bought Bitcoin for the first time. And my dad has re-gotten into it. And I'm just thankful for that.
Yeah, and as soon as you buy it, you start asking questions. My sister, she took her Trump bucks and took a portion of that and bought Bitcoin. And then like 2 weeks later, she was like, what's the halving? What's going on with the halving here? Is my money going to get cut in half? I was like, no, but I'm very happy you're asking this question. Yeah.
Dude, and the whole, like, when people started saying quantitative hardening versus quantitative easing, I'm like, that's a very, I do love when the just kind of, I don't know, proper language or whatever. It almost feels like a reverse meme to me, like a suit, like a meme in a suit. Like just some of these sayings, like that's, I equate it also to the whole like digital flare mitigation. Like when guys started saying that, I was just like, that's so awesome. Like,
digital pipelines, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, Bitcoiners are good memers. That's like, and the small repetitive memes that you can sort of just bake into people's head, like the halving alone, like just the word, the halving. What the halving? What the fuck? Like, did you see like the Google trends on that over the last week? It went exponential.
Yeah.
And again, like when people shut down, they're like, what the fuck? What the fuck's going on? Like you have Neil Kashkari on 60 Minutes. The Fed has unlimited money. We can print as much cash as we need.
I have a picture with him, dude. Neil Kashkari ran for governor of California in 2014. And so why was I helping him run for governor in 2014, dude? Why was I not thinking about Bitcoin? What was I doing?
Like, what'd you see in him?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know, dude. And that's part of the problem. And that's part of why, like, okay, so that's why I'm going to sit here like on a public podcast and I'm going to say this at meetings coming up. Like, I have a problem with the Republican Party in California choosing guys like that. Why? Why are we choosing a guy that's going to go on to be a central money printer and rip off poor people? Because that's what he's doing. You're going to print money and it's going to find its way into the 1%, and the Cantillon effect is going to continue happening. That doesn't make any sense, and that doesn't work for me anymore. And I'm going to be elected and sit here at your meeting and keep bringing it up.
Thank you for doing that. I'm a strong believer in that. Like, the system is so far gone, there's no chance in changing it from within. Like, it's not going to happen. It's all wishful thinking. Like, you see the act that they just passed, that's going to get, it's not even an act, it's a clause that's going to get added to the Patriot Act when they renew it in a couple days here, where the FBI has access to all of our web browsing history.
Yeah.
And like 10 Democrats who are supposed to be for the little man voted for it. Bernie, it was like literally one vote away from not getting passed, and Bernie Sanders didn't vote. Like, that dude doesn't give a fuck about anybody. Like,
yeah. Dude, I don't know. I don't know what the solution is to like the big picture, like that stuff. This is again where it's like I have my libertarian like loudmouth answer to that, but I'm like trying to come up with new information and new ways of like just giving us more ammo in our mental arsenal. And so that's this. It's like so I've been trying to do more thinking on just how Bitcoin continues to just weave itself into the thing and just break it apart like at the seams, rather than, because you've had guys that come on here and say like, we don't want it to burn down. And you're right. We don't want it to burn down. I'm not anti something. I'm for Bitcoin. I'm for freedom. I'm not advocating burning it down. I am advocating for, if people want to live in a Bitcoin circular economy outside of taxes that don't pay them back, I think they should legally be allowed to do that. And if that requires, one of us taking a case, weaving through the thing and paying it and paying the lawyers and going up to the Supreme Court and saying, hey, legitimately, this does not work for me anymore, and making our case as American citizens that like, this does not work for me anymore. I don't want to work under this system. I think like whether that will work or not work, it will create conversations. And so looking at ways like that. Or another angle is like this whole mining thing, dude. Because I know these government affairs people, I've been trying to pitch them on the idea of Bitcoin mining so that we can take it to a municipal audience. Because here in California, there's a ton of renewable, solar panels, wind farms that were built with public dollars and somehow governed by, a city or a school district or whatever. We need to tell them that bring the modules, bring the miners to them and increase, because everyone's getting their belt squeezed right now. Everyone's getting their belt squeezed because tax revenue is down and this whole thing is like jacked everyone up. So we can seize the day and say, we have a way for you to monetize existing resources that are already here in a way that the current regulations don't let you sell your electricity. So we come, teach them all about that. And then what happens? They sign the agreement they'll most likely sign the agreement in fiat. And so we'll just sell the electricity that they weren't able to sell to miners. But dude, we're one step away then from getting Bitcoin onto the balance sheet of a public city or of a public school district. And that's the other power of like, I am kind of this like on both sides of the fence thing on like being elected, because that's where it's like, no, like what if I want to run for a community college district or a school district that has solar panels and tell them that like we should be doing this? Or that's crazy to me. That's how we just continue to weave this thing and normalize this thing into the system.
No, I agree with that. And I like the localized nature of that, starting at the grassroots, at the school district, at the county level, instead of going straight to the Fed and being like, you should put Bitcoin on your balance sheet, which doesn't make any sense to me, but just integrate it with communities, right? Like strong towns.
Yeah. No, I love that. I love that, like, strong towns like episode you did, and it shows Like, it really is just like Parks and Rec, dude. Like, and people that have watched Parks and Rec, it truly is like that. Like, you don't have to, dude. I got elected with $1,800, and granted, like, it's just on Central Committee, like, but I now have a vote on the different kinds of city council people that get endorsed, the different kind of county supervisors that get endorsed. Like, so you can start at the bottom and get elected for not that much money and not that many votes. And it just helps you. It helps you have a voice. And it helps you normalize Bitcoin to just more people.
So are we getting into you can change the system through the system now?
Kind of. Yeah. No, definitely. And I think you
just have to start local. Like,
right.
I don't think we're going to change anything in DC. It's too far gone there.
Well, and what's frustrating is that change candidates don't stay change candidates. Like, when Andrew Yang endorsed Biden, why? Like, that's a super bummer, dude. Or when Bernie endorsed Biden, why? Like, why? Go start a podcast. Like, go start a lobbying company. Go start anything. Go be an interesting person. Like, don't give up. Like, that's what's annoying. And that's what's annoying of, like, how, or when Massey stood up and was like, hey guys, like, I really think we should I think we should count the votes on this thing. And then everyone, like, hated him. But we realize, like, these
He's
people
asking people to do their jobs.
Yeah. And so I think what's a bummer, so I guess it shows that you can use the system to grab attention. I guess that's what it is. Like, don't run for Congress thinking you're gonna, like, change the world, because most likely you're gonna get eaten by the system. But if you run for a small thing and win and learn how to book yourself on podcasts, learn how to use YouTube, learn how to use Instagram stories, then you have a reason. Like, you have a reason for local radio booking you. And then you go on and you talk about Bitcoin. Like, that's what's exciting for me. And that's what I love about just hanging out with everyone on Twitter every day, is because everyone is just finding different ways to grab influence and grab attention.
I agree. Are we too full of ourselves on Twitter, though? Are Bitcoiners too full of ourselves?
Maybe. Yeah, sometimes I wouldn't phrase it like that. I would phrase it that, and I hate the whole echo chamber thing too, because I think, like, I don't think it's bad to have an echo chamber. I think you come in, talk with people, but then, yeah, I do think you have to modify your message, and you have to be an approachable radical to other people, and you have to find out what their incentive is and make Bitcoin fit into their incentive. And so, no, it's like a double-edged sword. It's like the being full of ourselves is the confidence that, like, gives it, like, we're confident. I mean, we have the cards in the giant poker game. Like, we do. There's no, like, so we're going to call and we're going to raise because we have it. And so I don't know. I don't think we're overconfident. I think sometimes we just move too fast for other people and don't phrase it in the way that they need it phrased.
No, I agree. Always got to check yourself, though. Make sure you're not crazy. No, that's why I try to do with this podcast, to be like the approachable Bitcoiner to, like, the gold bugs and the skeptics. Hear them out, hear their side of the story.
Yeah.
But also, sometimes I get flack for not pushing back hard enough. But again, trying to meet somebody where they are at their point of their journey, is important. And this is something we learned via our wives. And something we should probably talk about is, like, being a married Bitcoiner and a Bitcoiner with parents who are worried about you because of the intensity of the freedom fight. And I was telling you before, or we were talking about the newsletter I wrote, or the week of newsletters a few weeks ago. I was, like, really angry about what's going on in the world, particularly, like, during the lockdown and with the encroachment on civil liberties. And then that was compounded by the sociopaths at Harvard who want to ban homeschooling and try to label kids as property of the state. My mom reached out. She was worried about me. The intensity of the letters that week really shone through. But it all, to clear the air, came from an area of like intense injustice and again, like evil things happening sort of behind the scenes that could have profound impacts on the life of my child and my future.
Yeah. No, dude, I've got those phone calls. My wife has that conversation with me, you know, at least every other month. Like, shout out to her. Like, I really appreciate Sharon, like, keeping me grounded. Like, follow her on Twitter, Sharinzi. She does a great job of keeping me grounded. And to your point of, just like being full of ourselves and being confident in the message, like, and being passionate about the message. No, I got those same phone calls from my parents saying, like, you know, like, why are you so angry about this? And it really is just like, because I don't feel free, dude. I don't feel free. It feels like we have permissions. It doesn't feel like we have rights. Like, break down what has happened. Like, the government said that you are not allowed to take the key to a building that you pay rent on or own, turn the key, go inside, and engage in commerce for money. They made engaging in commerce illegal. That, like, dude, what? That is weird. That is weird. And I'm not going to sit around and not say that that's weird. And I'm sorry that I've, like, said that, you know, loud and with some cuss words and with whatever, but that's still what's happening. And then bring it to Bitcoin. Like, the Cantillon effect is real. The people at the top get the money first and get the benefit, and then the people at the bottom suffer. And I'm tired. I'm tired of this being a conservative talking point or a liberal talking point. Like, this is what's happening. The Federal Reserve is increasing wealth inequality. And I'm gonna keep saying that.
I am too. But it's always like, people look at you like you're crazy. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Just sit down, shut up, get back in your pod.
Yeah.
All this is only temporary. It will pass. Everything is always temporary.
Yeah. Dude.
Like the Patriot Act, which is getting renewed in a few days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then, like, yeah, and luckily my wife supports what I do and what I have been doing for quite some time, but it did take a while to get there. And talking about, like, approaching the pitch, like, there were times, and, like, when we were still long distance, I was a senior at college. She was living here in New York, and she would fly to Chicago, and sometimes I'd ruin, like, one of the 3 days that she'd be in town because we'd be at brunch. I'd be like, the global monetary system's in trouble. Like, Bitcoin's the only way. Like, we're fucked. Mm-hmm. And like, those types of pitches are not advantageous to somebody in my wife's position, maybe to some other people, but I had to learn that lesson as well. And it is hard because you're so passionate about it. And like you said before we hit record too, like, why do we have access to this asymmetric information? Like, it feels like we're plebs. Like, having this information feels like a superpower sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sharon's on board with the mission too. Like, I'm really thankful, And something that has helped us is coming at it from the budgeting, like, side of it, and almost like treating Bitcoin as an asset. Like, it can't be, Bitcoin cannot, like, if you're in a committed relationship, it can't just be this, like, side thing that you're, like, squirreling away, you know, $50, $100, like, on this thing, because the other partner just sees it, like, leaving the accounts. And that really is something that I overcame of, like, dude, like, we have to get this stuff, like, on Sharon's phone. Like, it needs to be on her phone. It needs to be in her face. It needs to be like, so we are like Google, little Google Pod morning routine now, like, before it plays us our, you know, news podcast, it, like, tells us the price of Bitcoin. And I'm like, you have to work it into what you're doing. And I do think that, like stacking sats as a couple, like, is infinitely more fun than, like, stacking sats as, you know, an individual.
I agree. Yeah, man, it's a lot. It is like a heavy conversation to have, especially if not a heavy conversation, but like a process of a conversation, of a understanding. At least it was for me. Luckily, my wife she's orange pilled. She gets it. And she's stacking sats herself as well. But I feel for you freaks out there who feel uncomfortable bringing it up, or that you bring it up too much. And you definitely do have to temper the amount that you talk about it. You gotta talk about other things as well, but you also got to fight the good fight, and it's trying to balance those two.
Yeah, I do too. I feel like we need more stuff for Bitcoin couples. Like, and like, here, I'm going to say something like maybe controversial. Like we need more girls. Like, and I'm not saying that, and
it's not controversial.
I'm not saying that as like weird, like quotas and like dumb, like all this stuff. Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like literally, like we just need more perspectives. And when I say we, again, to like cypherpunks, I'm not talking about like Bitcoin community. I'm talking about like freedom fighting community, like the freedom fighting people that are trying to use this software and change their own personal prison and change the wider society prison. Like, and to do that, we need more people communicating as like just, you know, like adult couples going into life saying like, this is a real asset that we are using. We use this software. And I love the stories of like people that, you know, pay their kids allowance and stuff like on Lightning like that, or how Pierre like did his little webinar the other day for kids and like teaching parents how to teach kids to save. Like, dude, that is the most subversive thing you could do in the entire world right now. Like, swapping Fed dollars for Bitcoin is the #1 political protest you can make in the world right now. Teaching your kids about hard money and how to save, that will rip apart the people that are trying to control us.
Right. And it's due time, right? Like, I grew up in an era, like I was a 90s baby. And I remember like growing up, like as soon as we got our allowance, like I worked pretty much every summer since I was 12. And my parents did push me to save, but I was not always the best saver. I always wanted the latest jersey, the latest pair of shoes, latest video game. And the concept of money was never like, and I got paid in cash usually. I usually worked all cash jobs. So getting introduced to money as a 12-year-old, getting paid in cash like every day that you worked was like a weird way to get introduced to money, and probably led to some bad spending habits earlier in my life. But I think more education around the concept of money, and hard money particularly, is like you said, very subversive if you can get that at an early age. Like I just had the concept of saving money and making money, not really the concept of money, what it is or what it's supposed to fulfill.
Yeah. And that's why I hope, so that's how I feel. Like, I feel bad for like Bitcoiners that aren't able to do it as a couple. And then on the other side, I feel bad for people that are still stuck in kind of these like just personal finance courses that aren't hitting the root of the problem. Like like you can learn how to get out of credit card debt, and you can learn how to, you know, max out your 401k match first and then do this next and do all that stuff. Do all that stuff. It's all great advice. But it doesn't hit the core of the problem. You're still trapped. You're still building your whole thing on quicksand. And that's the other thing too, of like trying to create that sense of urgency for the like personal finance community that gives largely good advice. But it's like, I'll talk to some people and they'll be like, you know, well, I'll have to ask my financial advisor about it. I'm like, you have to ask your financial advisor. You have to ask your financial advisor if you can download an app and spend $10. Like, that doesn't make any sense.
And it just shows like the mental allocation a lot of people give to the financial industry. It's like, you don't want to learn how to protect your money yourself? Yeah. Does your financial advisor have aligned incentives either? Yeah. Are they chasing fees? Most likely.
And they've just taught you, like, they just got it in their head that it's too complicated. Oh, well, I don't really understand economics. Like, I don't understand economics either. I studied economics, but as soon as the math got too hard, I switched to business admin. Just like it's hard. economics in air quotes, the way that like the world does it is hard and doesn't make any sense. So like stop following that or believing that it's too complicated. Like top down control is bad. Like don't let them tell you what the answer is.
Exactly. Well, that's why economics is hard to understand, because it's all top down control with models like the Laffer curve. Like the economics that we learned in college, that's what I studied as well, was hard because it's so fucking convoluted. You're trying to, again, like you said, top down control and model everything out when it's just damn near impossible.
Yeah.
I remember
being in class one day, and I think it was some microfinance about like overseas investors or something. Like it was kind of from like a sociological perspective, helping out entrepreneurs. So it was cool. But then I don't know why this sticks with me, but one day the professor was talking about how he had enough cash to buy a car like full, but because they were offering, 1.2% interest, why not just take that? Because it's easy money. Like, and I was just like, that's just so funny that it's like that pervasive in the thing of, yeah, it is free. Like it is free. The fact that they're just going to hand out free money. Yeah. Why not just like take advantage of it? But how that doesn't spark interest in anyone to like think about more inside an academic institution, albeit not even just some random conversation, is like fun.
Yeah. They're not incentivized to. Yeah. Incentives run the world, freaks. And thinking of a girl, I actually had a comment. It's good to see Michelle Phan get into it. And I think she's a very good inspiration for a lot of women out there. So, and I think that's a good girl to have on our team.
Totally. Hopefully she talks more about it on YouTube. Yeah, I started following her on YouTube when those tweets blew up.
Michelle, if you're following this podcast, you have an open invite if you ever want to come on, talk about your journey to Bitcoin.
Or even better, just bring Marty onto your YouTube. We got to get Marty onto YouTube more.
That would be dope. I'm up into that, Michelle. One thing I want to talk about, we got to wrap it up here soon. I got to get to dinner. But before that, I'm going to sort of throw this on you. I don't know if you're comfortable to talk about it, but you're very religious, and it's during a time when it's not easy to be very religious. It gets mocked a lot. What's that like?
So I kind of view this like religious the way that people say like crypto. Like, and so what I like to say is like, dude, I'm a Jesus follower. Like, and so I don't know if you've heard that, but like, I'm a Jesus follower, and I see Jesus like as the Bitcoin and as like religion as, the crypto. And like, because he's the only one like in my entire life that has like helped me not listen to like the negative voice inside my head. And so like when I say Jesus gives me freedom, that's what I mean. Like believing in him gives me freedom, because I believe that humans, like I had this conversation with a Bitcoiner the other day, like, are humans inherently good or bad? And like, I say bad. Like, I think humans are inherently bad. But the reason why I can say that with optimism is because I believe God is inherently good. I don't believe God causes bad things to happen to you. Like, I believe God loves you. Like, if you're listening to this, like, I believe God loves you. And that's why I can live in a world driven by selfish incentives and be an optimist, is like for that reason. And so I see there's a lot of continuity in my life of like, Jesus creates freedom. Bitcoin creates freedom. Guns create freedom. Free speech creates freedom. And so in that sense, like I see, my kind of mental model and the way that I operate through life is very consistent.
Yeah, no, and I applaud you for not being afraid to voice that opinion, where a lot of people are these days, in a world that's sort of losing Jesus, not religion. It's losing Jesus. But I did like that. I don't know if you did that on Easter. I grew up Catholic, and I believe Jesus has a very good message. I'm a bad Catholic. I'm a bad Jesus follower. But I did like the story you read. I think it might have been on Easter, about Jesus sacrificing for the individual. Like he will go find in the parable about the sheep and the one on the mountain.
Yeah, dude. God, like in this world of like crowds over individuals, like God does not do crowd math. Like, God loves you as an individual. God created you as the individual, and he would risk everything. He already did. He risked everything for you. So he's not doing that. Like, to be honest, like I've been very frustrated with the reaction that the church in the United States has had, like, to this shutdown, because I just don't, again, whether it's there's different levels of like whether it's serious or not serious, and it is serious, but I don't think we should just like shut down churches that easily. I think that's really dangerous. And so that bothered me. And that triggered me to, like, when I read that passage about, you know, Jesus leaving the 99 sheep in the open country to go find one sheep, that's what I think about. I think about this time and how God's not doing crowd math. He loves you as an individual.
Yeah, I think it's a very strong message too. You can change the world, and you are important. That's why we Bitcoin too, because it enables individuality on a level that does not exist in the current financial system.
Totally, dude. And my faith, like I see my faith in everything. It doesn't, and I don't think it's look, I don't think believing in Jesus is anti-science. I don't think believing in Jesus is anti-Bitcoin. Like, I was just going to make this analogy to, like, what you just said of, yeah, we're individuals. Like, if you read 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, like, you are not a lottery ticket. Your idea is not a lottery ticket. If you're an investor, you're not just picking random things. Like, good investors, you have a literal thesis of what you think is around the corner. Like, and then you hammer it. And that's how I feel about Bitcoin, dude. Like, I've never had this much asymmetric information about anything in my whole entire life. And so I'm going to hammer this with every spare dollar that I have and every ounce of, like, personal credibility that I have. I'm going to hammer this thing because it's the only opportunity I've ever had this much asymmetric information on.
I feel the same way. Let's keep hammering. Let's keep fighting the good fight. Yeah. Brian, thank you so much. It's been an incredible hour. Where can we find out more about you, what you're working on? How can we help the cause?
Yeah. So go to surplusbitcoin.com and go to brianharrington.org. And yeah, really appreciate it, guys. Really appreciate all you freaks. Thankful for you.
Yeah. And I didn't realize this until a couple of weeks. You're Brain Harrington on Twitter.
Brain Harrington. Yep. Brain Harrington across all social.
Okay. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'm going to go enjoy some dinner.
Do it. Thank you so much, man.
Peace and love, freaks.